mighty smart.
And they was those pipsqueaks.
And God said no to every single one of those guys. And he said, bring me David.
And David was the scrawny,
David came in there dirty. David came in there ready to go. And it's because God qualifies folks.
I know that's right. Have five on that
God
one.
Qualifies folks.
I know that's right.
So that's what my life has essentially been about. It was about God, and I believe I'm not trying to sound irrelevant or irreverent, but God qualified me a long time ago.
And what He has for you, no one can take it away if that's for you.
Exactly. My entire life has aligned. Again, I don't mean to sound overly spiritual, but my entire life has aligned to the point in which I'm at, even at this space right now.
I'm right there with you.
I met Queenie at the Bud Billiken Day Parade. Nothing in my life before that would have pointed to a 26-year-old walking in the Bud Billiken Day Parade talking about one and everyday gun violence, but I'm sitting here right now with you. And our campaign has been not attacking Bobby Rush for the things that has gone wrong in his life personally. We've developed strong contrast between our campaign and Bobby Rush. You talked about we lost Big Mama in the household. Part of the reason why, economically speaking, our households are currently in the position they are is because Bobby Rush voted for the disastrous 1994 crime bill, which put our young men in jail for life for petty crimes, nonviolent crimes. So not only was it unethical, it harmed us economically, and it led to mom having to work 2 jobs at McDonald's just to feed herself, rather than a 2-parent household.
Whereas you talked about the youth going out to seek out what they're missing at home.
Correct.
Not everything came from broken families. It came from like as you said, mom now having to have 2 jobs, so mom is not home giving that support. So now the children, they have the run of the neighborhood because mom doesn't get off of work to a certain time,
and they know that everything's connected. All these things are interconnected, and also son, daughter is also helping to raise themselves and their siblings, trying to figure out how their brothers and sisters.
Or as your situation, grandparents raising the children, and at a certain point, grandma gets a little too old to run around with you and check up on you, and now we have social media in the midst of everything.
That has changed dramatically our interrelations with our family, because now, you can call your kids and get on the FaceTime and go, hey, I see you. Okay, once that's over, they out the door.
They don't have to answer the phone for you anymore.
Oh, they answer my phone. They don't answer my phone. We have a problem.
Of course. But that is just where it is, and I definitely think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, because I think it is a great thing to see us young people come in. I mean, if it just with everything now being social media, technology, you can't tell me that Bobby Rush is running his own, when it comes to the technology, the stuff that's, you have to deal with technology.
Yeah. One of the issues simply is like the crime bill. A lot of our elected officials do not adequately read the bills put in front of them. So they don't actually know half the time what they're signing. And when they don't know, they clerks or whoever say, well, this is this, and they sign it. We have to get back to the point where you don't approve of anything until you know what it is you're approving of.
Yes.
Exactly.
And you need to have, I always say, you have your negative and your pro person. Mm-hmm. You tell me what's wrong with it. You tell me what's good with it. And then you weigh that. Yeah. But a lot of people don't think that way. But let me say, I'm impressed with your presentation. I'm impressed with your thoughtfulness and your history that has brought you to this point. I ran for alderman this last cycle. I'm not going to say it completely, almost twice your age. And that was my first time.
You look good, though.
I appreciate that.
Black don't crack.
So, you at 25 starting and getting to this point, brother, I wish you the most success you can possibly achieve.
Yes.
Thank you. And then I would be remiss not to talk about how my age is a benefit to this campaign for this district. When we think about a lot of the major issues facing the 1st Congressional District of Illinois and in other districts that have disinvesting communities in them, a lot of those issues are gun violence, the fact that our criminal justice system is quite frankly racist, the inadequacies in our healthcare system and need for education reform. All these issues disproportionately impact black men under the age of 35 years old. Yet when you look at the makeup of our U.S. Congress, we don't have a single black man under the age of 35. And this isn't about identity politics. We're missing key voices right now in Congress.
Yes.
And
a
representation.
voice and representation. A voice that's going to say, hey, this crime bill that's going to put more police in our streets instead of more resources may not be the best idea for us. It's going to put my friends that are selling cannabis to make a living, it's going to put them in jail if you get caught 3 times, you're going to be in jail for 20 plus years.
Yep.
We need those voices that are going to speak up for our people and not just be bystanders and allowing the system just to continuously pummel our communities.
And that's what they've done considerably, because the movement, as I told you when I first came in, I met some people coming into the studio today who were here to advocate for opening a dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
But like you just said, how many of our brothers and sisters have spent multiple nights, days, weeks, years in prison for selling something that now you have the former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, going, I would suggest you invest in this because I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the former Speaker of the House?
Yeah.
But now going into that's a whole nother show. We've had so many conversations on that because, for me, it is what it is. That is, even that part of the business, it is not set up and they're not working this so we can have an
you mean
economic...
those of us who have been suffering under this for so long?
That
us?
That us.
Yeah.
That us.
That's one
Melanin. I'm melanin us.
Yeah.
Melanin us.
We have spent a lot of time in prison for stuff, and now they're making big money.
And that's not...
It's not available.
That's not for us to
no.
get in on that economic development when it comes to the dispensaries, things like that. Not when you have licenses when you have an application...
$20,000.
Because we went to the expo at this Chicago State University. Mm-hmm. When you have a license, the application for the license is $5,000.
Right. The application for the license
is $5,000. And then in order to have a certain type of business, you have to have the transporter's license, which
separate license.
That's a separate license. So that's $10,000 worth of just applications. Then the actual transporter's license, I think, is like $10,000, and you have to have that in order to have a dispensary,
the vehicles and everything else.
And those have to be licensed a certain way. So every way around, even when there's that thought of this is now becoming legal and available to us for us to better our communities. It's not necessarily to better us, and we're not going to make the big bucks off of it, because right now there are no African Americans that hold those.
Not in this city.
Not in this city that holds those licenses.
Not to the scale. Yeah, 100%. And what we say in our campaign is. We used to say the system is broken.
No, the system works just the way it was designed.
And that's exactly
just the way it was designed.
What you're speaking to, Queenie, is that there is now a system that they are benefiting from, and once we're harmed by it. So
it's almost like that. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't join us. They beat us down.
No. They couldn't beat us in ruling it completely out and keeping us locked away with it. So now it's like, since we can't beat them with it, we'll join in on, and now we'll commercialize that we're okay with marijuana now.
See, here's the thing.
You know what I mean?
World War II, during World War II, they used to ask farmers to grow hemp because they used it for the ropes on our ships at that point in time.
Yes.
After World War II, they outlawed it. But why? And there's the explosion of the opioids. And so again, as we said before, all these things intersect each other. But we know a lot of our problems, but I want to talk to you about our solutions.
I would love to do that.
One of your things that you talked about was your friend who had problems. And I've had friends who went to college and they just said it was too much. They couldn't grasp. Not that they weren't smart enough to get the information, but their study habits were messed up. They just couldn't adjust. So, what is your advocacy for preparing our young Black American residents to competitively compete at the college level? How do we address that? How do we get to that point?
That's a great question. It actually starts from birth. So disinvested in communities all across the country, again intentionally. There is high concentrations of lead in our drinking water. And there's numerous studies that point to the effects, the impact of lead in our drinking water. It underdevelops the minds of our young people.
Right.
And predominantly from the ages of 0 to 3. Flint, Michigan. So our young people are starting off their life at a disadvantage. From age 0 to 3, our brains aren't even developing at the same capacities that our more affluent counterparts are. So our system is really messed up when you think about it.
Well, don't you find it interesting that they outlaw lead in paint, but they're not doing anything about the lead in the water that we have to drink?
That we have to drink, and the toxins in our oil. That's in our air. This is part environmental racism.
Okay.
The issues that exist within our country. So we need to spend that money. That instead of spending, and I'm all down for $95 billion on renovating the 95th Street station,
the red line.
To be honest, I would love to spend $95 million in making sure that there's no lead in our drinking water. I feel like that may be a better use of resources at this current point. So that's stage one, is getting the lead out of our drinking water and toxins out of our air and soil, and making sure that we're tackling environmental racism in a way that's sustainable. And it's also in universal pre-K. It has an immediate 7-to-1 reinvestment back into the economy. For one, you are putting young people in position to matriculate through education at a rate similar to their more affluent community counterparts. And at the same time, there's an economic benefit because now mom, dad can go back to work a little sooner.
Yeah.
You know, and they can continue to invest in education as you matriculate. And it's also just an entire reformation on the way we fund our schools. In Illinois, we have the highest percentage of housing taxes funding our public schools.
Correct.
So that means if you live in a disinvested community, more than likely your school is going to be under resources purely off of the housing taxes in that area. So that's an injustice. And then what I did after I graduated from college, I became the manager of program innovations at this nonprofit by the name of One Goal. It was the exact same organization that helped me get into college in the first place, so I believed in a model, and I believe that I can go in and work with those folks that I've worked with for decades, a decade, to strengthen our model and how we ensured that as we were getting this new generation of young people that against all odds are getting into college and job training and certificate programs, because we're about much more than just college, that we are preparing them to actually persist, so that way they're not coming out with an enormous amount of student debt, so much so that even with that $40,000 a year job that they may get after that certificate, that job training, or that college degree, they're still in debt. They're still in poverty because, if, as we know, if you're $40,000 in student loan debt, even if you make $40,000 a year, your student loan payments will be about $300 to $350 per month. When you do the math, you're still below $24,000 a year.
Yes.
So it's making sure that yes, our young people are getting into these educational institutions and job training and certificate programs, and persisting. And it's also that last step, and it's making sure that as they're getting these certificates and they're benefiting our society, we as a society need to reward them. So no one should be coming out of college with student debt, and at one of the wealthiest nations in the country.
And a lot of them are not able to work, not able to find jobs. How
you
do
get
you
people
pay
with master's
that?
degrees,
Yes.
and nothing against what I'm about to say, but they're baristas.
Yeah.
And they take the job because, I couldn't find anything else. But these bills are not stopping.
They're not stopping.
So, I agree with you that there has to be some equity in how the educational process is done and how the loans and the money that they utilize has to be leveled. It has to be leveled. Because who's going to go and get those type of loans and have that debt coming out of college, and you're not guaranteed that $50,000, $60,000 a year? Especially now, bachelor's degree, you kind of can maybe work through that, but you go for a master's, and Lord forbid a PhD.
So I'm going to ask a question.
Please do.
That I'm sure a lot of people in the community, our community, are asking. So, how Windy City Review is usually pretty set up. I am the person that attacks everything for the community, for what some people will consider the little people of the community. Because I know I have family members. My mother is still asking, me certain questions and misinformed, and she's 64. So that tells me that we have been living a life in our community that we have no idea what's going on when it comes to politics, when it comes to much of anything that we actually live through. So that being said, and Paul is the technical. Paul is going to ask you the legislative questions. He's going to do the research on that. Well, I want to ask you, and I just want to, Paul, you can elaborate on this too. Sure. So when we talk about minimum wage, when we talk about student loans, when we talk about these things that are keeping our communities at the bare minimum, when we talk about that, who changes these things for us? I want you guys to speak on, because you guys have the political background. I want you guys to speak on who changes these things, because we need that understood so we can understand why our votes matter. And then we stay tuned, because we do have someone that will be coming in very soon with us. She speaks totally directly on the importance of voting, and she works with the youth, and just to get them familiar with why you need to vote. So going back to that question, and for the community to understand why our votes, why you guys, because there are people out there that they don't understand that. And this is what I want to ask, because people are asking these things. When a person gets their student loan report in their mailbox and they're saying, this is ridiculous, why, how can they do this to me? Who changes this? Who passes the bills for them so that they can do this? So can you guys elaborate on the positions of the legislative community?
Well, let me break it down for Robert. Robert, you win. What you gonna do? That's basically it. What is your job?
Yes.
What is your job to affect the constituents in the 1st Congressional District? How do you help those people? And by design, if you can help those people in the 1st Congressional District, that spreads. Yeah. So, because you'll be the role model. Yeah. So, in relation to what Queenie's asking, what is your job? What can you affect that will affect everybody's everyday life?
Yes, who do we talk to? Who do we talk to about minimum wage changing? Who can we cry to and say, this is not enough for us? Who changes that?
Yeah. That's an absolutely brilliant question. I'm so glad you asked it. I think change can happen. I'm not trying to sound too Obama-esque, but change can really happen at all levels of government and all levels of our society. And I don't mean that as an exaggeration or rhetorically. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I think we as thought leaders, as representatives, our mindset has to be about the fact that we are the solutions together. For far too long, we've had politicians come into our community and make a bunch of promises, and they've disappointed us over and over and over again. And that's because a lot of their, and I'm speaking as a politician, I own that. A lot of our mindsets are fixated around this orientation that power is in us, rather than power being in our community. So that's why when we were developing our mantra for our campaign, we landed on "We are the solution together," and it's predicated on the belief that true power, it can never be vested in one person, and that one person can't have a monopoly on best ideas. That's the best idea that we have on our campaign, is that we want to work with the community to solve these big problems. But I know I'm running for U.S. Congress, and folks deserve to know more concrete what our ideas are. Mm-hmm. So I'll pinpoint gun violence prevention since that is our number one issue on our campaign. Our number one solution on our campaign is gun violence prevention. Right now there is an amendment called the Dickey Amendment, which prevents the federal government, the Centers for Disease and Control, from studying gun violence as a public health epidemic. Gun violence is 100% a disease. You can track it similar to how you would track the spread of a disease. It's contagious, and it's killing 40,000 Americans per year. 100,000 people are wounded by or killed by a gun as an epidemic. So we want to first go in there and reverse the Dickey Amendment and allow the Centers for Disease and Control to study gun violence with an emphasis on everyday gun violence. And then after we prove what activists have been saying for decades about how all these issues are interconnected, now we need to put our money where our mouths are. And again, going back to that understanding that we do not have a monopoly on best ideas, I believe that wholeheartedly. We will allocate federal dollars to go directly to community-based organizations that are already doing the work to reduce/end gun violence within our communities. And sometimes it's about housing. Sometimes their mission is about housing, and sometimes it's about transportation. Others is about ending systemic poverty. But that's gun violence prevention in my mind. So we want to make sure that we are adequately funding these organizations. So instead of just reducing gun violence on 79th and Loomis, we want you to go to Ashland. We want you to go all the way down to Cicero. We want you to come, you know what I mean? We want you to be able to take your mission and scale it. And then lastly, what we need to do in order to actually end everyday gun violence, we have to continue to advocate for and strategically be able to ascertain progressive policies like Medicare for All. Medicare for All will ensure that every single person in this country has guaranteed access to health care, and that includes dental, vision, and yes, mental health care.
Yes,
Ooh.
yes,
Ooh.
yes.
And so that is gun violence prevention. Come on. That we can directly address the compounded post-traumatic stress disorders that too many of our young people are suffering from in cities like Chicago. We need to pass a Green New Deal. Queenie, you mentioned, you talked a lot about making sure that everybody has access to a job. The Green New Deal has a federal jobs guarantee component to it. It creates an entirely new industry, a green industry that our young people will be positioned to take those roles and be trained to take those roles. And it focuses on the care economy as we put more and more people to work. Now we need more resources back home because our students are going to need more after school programs. Our parents are going to need more leave. We can completely reform our economy with progressive values like Medicare for All, like a Green New Deal, like expanding access to transportation. We can do all these things. It's not a matter of if we can pay for it. Like we sometimes hear we can pay for it.
You know, we hear a lot of times that we can't pay for, you know,
we absolutely can.
And this is one of those things when you watch these press conferences, when you hear the politicians speak, it's always mind blowing because it's like an excuse why certain things are not being done, and most of the time we don't have the money for this, we don't have the funds for this, we're shorthanded for this and for that. But then you'll see the CTA project, you'll see the expressway project, you'll see projects that, and I'm just going to be totally honest, in our communities you see projects going on around the city that you're like, what the hell is this doing for us? This isn't doing anything for me. But they said that they don't have money. They're closing down 54 CPS schools because of funding and things like this. You don't have money for our children to have books, but you have billions of dollars to extend the train. Or you have billions of dollars for
understand something. They close the schools. They still have to maintain them. So there's no students there, there's no teachers there, but you have to have a cleaning crew.
Yes.
You got to have the running water, the electricity. All that is still ongoing, so they're still paying for that. But to further what you're saying, we never have money for anything but wars, apparently.
I was going to bring that up.
Because now, Queenie knows this, I'm a veteran. I was in the Marine Corps.
Thank you for your service, sir.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for acknowledging that. One of the most heartfelt things for me is when you have these situations and you say, well, we can't pay for this, we can't pay for that, we can't pay for that, but you can send my brothers and sisters in the military over to a foreign land where they are not a threat to us, to the United States, and they're not really a threat to our allies, but you send them anyway. And we have bases built over in Iraq, Iran, in Afghanistan. We have bases built, and some of the bases are not being utilized. We just gave up a base along the Turkish border that is now has a Russian flag over it.
Yeah.
Personally, I think America just needs to stay out of everybody's business and take care of home first. I mean, it's, it.
Well,
I understand we have allies, and I understand that we as a whole make this world run. But I personally feel like that's like me not taking care of what is going on in my kitchen cabinets.
Right.
And my kitchen cabinets are a hot mess, but I want to come to your house and tell you how your kitchen cabinets and how everything should be organized in your home. And I can even take care of what's going on in my home.
Well,
you know what I mean?
There's strategic measures that are taken,
I feel like
but the strategic measures
world.
are, you have to acknowledge that these strategic measures, sometimes we have to be in places, but we don't have to be in all these places. Who is benefiting? There's one rule. There's one rule in society. There's one rule in the military, and there's one rule in the government. Follow the money. Who's making the money off of that?
That's what I was gonna bring up exactly what you're saying. I 100% hear you and I agree with you, but I think it's following the money. So if we are, I think Dr. King would agree. If we're there for justice and fighting for the vulnerable in that community, we're there for the right reasons. If we're there for oil, then we're probably, I'm just gonna say it.
You just called it out.
Why not?
The oil.
Yeah. If we're there for oil or power or cobalt or plutonium or uranium, then we are there for the wrong reasons.
Correct.
And we have a military industrial complex in our country in which our federal government is spending 10 times as much as the next closest on our military. That is excessive. And so when I hear the argument of we can't pay for Medicare for all, something that will ensure that no one is cutting their insulin or making a decision between getting the care that they should deserve or going bankrupt. And I think about the fact that when it comes to war and taking lives, we don't ask how to pay for it. But when it comes to Medicare and healthcare and the Green New Deal and saving lives, we get kind of frugal all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. So our priorities are out of sync. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are electing officials that understand that our priorities are out of sync and will do whatever is necessary in order to push back against that complex. That's why I love the fact that folks like Bernie Sanders voted against all of these endless, senseless wars. And because he was able to have the foresight to see, like, no, I see why we are going there. And I refuse to be a part of that. We need more elected officials that have that levels of foresight and have zero interest in profit over people. And that's what we've started to become in this country. But I believe when we elect the right folks and when civically we don't just show up on voting day, but we hold our elected officials accountable, then we can move to a place in which we, as Americans, no matter what color you are, socioeconomic status you are, we are living up to our highest aspirational goals. So the Constitution, I got my things, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, as a goal, as a creed, we should aspire to that. We haven't always met it, but we need to strive for it, and that's promoting the general welfare. That means that every single person in our country is well taken care of. And we have to believe that, and we have to advocate for it as a people.
Holding our elected officials accountable.
The most important part.
Everyone knows me. I don't, when I sit with Tyrone is literally going crazy on the politicians.
I've seen him.
You've seen it. He goes off. He got names for you guys and everything. Yeah. He's a bit radical. As far as like with me, I'm on everybody's back and I'm on everyone's case because I definitely think as far as the politicians, and I'm just going to say it because you two are the politicians. Yeah. If I elect you, I want you to do, if I voted for you, I want you to do what you said you were going to do. And it's time that the community does that. And then, and that's my area where I have to get on the community's back because we can call you guys names. We can say, I get a lot of backlash from, you know, Facebook friends, things like that. You've got, you know, you'll see me with Tony Preckwinkle. You got people that don't like Tony. You'll see me with Kim Fox. You got people that don't like Kim. You'll see me with Dorothy. You got some people that don't like her. You'll see, or if I say, you know, if I say we have this person's coming on the show, or we don't like this one, we don't like that one. I really don't care who anyone likes and doesn't like. My thing is, one thing about that person with melanin that has that seat, they are in that seat and they did whatever it is that they felt like they wanted to change or whatever, they took that. And I feel that as far as us as a people, if you can sit at home and you say you don't like this one, you don't like that one, you don't like what they stand for, you don't, then maybe it's time for you to start getting on the path to maybe where you can possibly, we don't know, you may be a politician and not even know it, but you have to get on that path. And I just feel like if we want to change some things, before we can talk about this one and that one, we all need to change some things. And as far as holding each other holding our politicians accountable, I want to see the community understand. This is the reason why I wanted to do this show, because I felt like me having more of the hood image versus my co-host that has the more of the political background, we can bridge that and we can empower the minds of the community to make them understand it's not just what the politicians are doing wrong. We can't just always jump on your backs either. We can jump on your back, but we have to look at ourselves too. One thing, you don't know everything that's going on in every neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And you're running for a certain congressional district. But there's districts all around, there's wards all around. Our community, the people in the communities, they need to stand up. We need to stand up and talk about what we don't like in our communities. And we need to go to our elected officials, because, I mean, even if you have an alderman, if that alderman is not riding down all of those streets in the neighborhood, he don't know what's going on your block. You have to tell, you can't jump on a person's back and say, this is messed up in our neighborhood, this needs to change, but nobody's talking to him about it. And if he's just doing what he's doing because no one from the community is saying we need this change, then we from the community also needs to be held accountable to keep up with our communities. Absolutely. You know, we can't just talk about what an alderman is not doing in our communities when you are driving down your own block, you'll toss your water bottle out the window. You'll toss your McDonald's bag out the window. You change Lil Mama or Lil Man in the back seat. I'm saying it. You're going to change Lil Mama or Lil Man in the back seat, and then you throw the pamper out on, but then you want to talk about our there's no cleaning going on. You have to keep your own neighborhoods clean. You see too many abandoned properties. You as the community need to come together and go to your alderman. Don't just think that these elected officials are just going to do everything. We've got to hold ourselves accountable as well.
But that's what I always want to bring to the point that, like Robert had brought forward, civic engagement. We as the community and as the constituents, you asked earlier, who has the power? And I wanted so badly to say, we actually have the power. Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted. That's where I was getting to.
It's the problem of, and I'm gonna speak on this just from my area.
Please.
We got certain areas in our ward that are nice. They put together. Mm-hmm. They have their own little thing going on, and then we have other areas in our ward that a little downtrodden. They kind of home girl, home guy kind of type situation. Well, they don't like to mix. That's a problem. That's a separation. So what I'm trying to do, and that's why we have the Ninth Ward Collective, is to bridge the gap. Look, we all live in the same ward. We all live in the same congressional district. Mm-hmm. We need to let these falsehood and these feelings about each other, like, oh, y'all ghetto, we don't want to deal with y'all.
That block.
Look, that block.
That block.
We don't want to deal with that block.
It's nice on this block, but that block is a mess.
But you can't get to this block without going through that block. Yes. We all live together. And so that's where we have to get to this head start. We have to get back to, they used to teach civics in school. Mm-hmm. Why did that disappear? Because that taught people
home economics. A lot of things that's been taken away.
I did some work with the Obama Foundation a few years ago. One of the things that came out of there was I worked with 3 young leaders. They were up and coming in civic engagement. to develop an organization. I believe they now have nonprofit status. It's a civic engagement organization. So they teach the importance of civic engagement to 8th graders in Auburn Gresham. And it's about civic engagement as a cyclical process, meaning it's not just what you do on voting day. It's what you do every single day. To making sure that you are taking responsibility for your community. You're developing initiatives targeted at some of your community's most pressing issues. All of those things are important. But I will be remiss to say, at the end of the day, the voters are the politicians' boss. You all pay eventually my salary. So I need to be held accountable when I'm not showing up to work and I have the worst voting record of all members of Congress.
Yes.
Come on. I want to say
I wasn't gonna bring it up. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but you're right. You're right. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but yeah.
But seriously, when you don't show up to work,
are you getting paid?
Are you getting paid? Are you going to have that job for very long? If you're voting, and when you are there and you're voting against the interest of the people, and instead you're voting for, of the interest of
your pockets,
of corporations, right? You shouldn't last that long in that seat. And it's a matter of our communities feeling enabled to hold our elected officials accountable. And it's yes, I understand the nostalgia that exists and the connection that we have with politicians, but we have to move past that and say, yeah, I like you, but you also you need to answer to me.
But the communities are very disconnected. This is why I believe why we are where we are now, because the communities have always really been disconnected from, because the people in the community don't feel like they do have that power, so it doesn't get done. Of course, with me doing everything that I do, a lot of my neighbors follow, and they're coming to me. We had a stop sign that was hit. We had a stop sign that was hit, and the stop sign was down, and it caused a lot of accidents because the way the street is set up, and this is one of the things I'm telling my people in my community. This is good. This light has been blinking for now 3 or 4 months, and I keep telling. And I have to say, well, you have to call. Okay. Give me something. I'll sign it. Yeah. But you got to take the stop. You can't just come to me and talk about it. You got to go ahead and go down the whole block. Yeah. Get everyone to sign a petition, or get everyone to promise that all the older people that's at home, get everybody to call in and talk about it. But this is the point then this is where I'm saying, as far as us also being held accountable, to hold you guys accountable, because people don't feel like they can, and this is one of the reasons why no one from the community is actually talking to you guys. So I hear the politicians saying, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in every block. I mean, you probably should if you're alderman, but at the same time, you got to get to their offices. I need to talk to you about my problem, and your door needs to be open so I can come in and talk to you about my problem.
Absolutely. One of the most strategic and proximate things that a member of Congress can do on the federal level is make sure that they have a robust constituent services office. And that's whenever you have a problem. When you have a problem with Veterans Affairs or the Post Office or the IRS, you're supposed to be able to call your member of Congress in either D.C. or their home office, and they're supposed to be able to be your voice from you to the federal agencies that exist within our government.
So let's give people the chain of command
of members of Congress.
The chain of command of I'm a citizen, I'm a resident, I have an issue. Yeah. Give the people, what is my chain of command? When I need something done in my neighborhood, what's my chain of command?
Exactly, that's a good question. So let's say, I'll give you some examples. Let's say your stop sign. Your stop sign, I would go ahead and call your alderman. I would call your alderman.
Now, if I can't get through to my alderman,
if you can't get through your alderman, well, you need to bang on that door. But if that doesn't work, I would push it a little bit further and try to speak to, still on the municipal level, try to speak to someone in local government for things like stop signs. But potholes, things,
more
trash
police
cans,
in our neighborhood, more policing in our neighborhoods, things like that.
If you witness police being over aggressive in your community, that's when you need to call your
not
alderman.
Enough police.
Not enough not enough good policing in the neighborhood. Yes, those are the things you need to speak to your alderman about. Start off with your alderman, or keep it on a local level. Let's say, for instance, you're witnessing your local public school being continuously disinvested in because of the housing taxes. I would more or less maybe speak to your state rep, your state senate, because that's you can get a lot done in state government as it pertains to school funding. Let's say, for instance, you're having an issue with the IRS. They kind of cheated you out a little bit, or the post office. So you're not getting your mail, or the Veterans Affairs, you're not getting the health care that you serve to get.
Right.
That's when you call your member of Congress. Anytime you're interacting with the federal government, you should probably call your members of Congress. However, I'm the type of person, and I was raised to be the type of person that if you come to me with a problem, no matter even if it is your stop sign, or your trash can, or the rodents, or the fact that your schools aren't funded, I want to hear about that too. And I want to do whatever I can to work across the different levels of government to get your problem solved, because that is what elected officials should be doing. That is why we were elected, is to think with you about the fact that you may be cutting your insulin, and to work on that issue with you, to think through why you may be $10,000 in debt. Think through why your interest rates are 5 times higher than your white counterpart with the same credit score and the same amount of wealth. Think through those things with you, and again, be much more than problem identifiers. We got a lot of problem identifiers, people that can point to all these problems, but we need no solutions. That's why every single problem that I've identified on robertemmons.org, we have a corresponding solution to it. And we got to also move past just adopting solutions, where we're just like, okay, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, I'm going to adopt every single piece of this. We got to innovate. So if you look at our policies, when we talk about systemic poverty, we mention reparations. I'm not afraid to say it. We talk about reparations for American descendants of slaves and kings, and I got to throw that part out there.
I appreciate it.
And also in indigenous people. And we can't just say reparations and just leave it there, because that doesn't do anything. We got to say we want reparations, and that's how we're going to do it. One of the biggest things differences between what we've proposed as it pertains to reparations and what some others may have proposed is we have a debt relief portion of our reparations. And I thought about it as if someone were to give me $100,000, what will I do with it? Someone gives me $100,000, I'm paying off the student loans, I'm paying medical bill debt because I didn't have any money. I'm helping out generational curses to heal. And at the end of the day, I might be at $0 before I can even think about generating any wealth. I didn't spend it all just dealing with generational.
Just playing catch up.
I'm just playing catch up. So
part,
we have a debt relief component to our reparations plan, and then we're 100% okay with saying over 30 years we do want to spend $22 trillion rectifying the injustices, the racism that existed in our country. We want to actually work to a place in which my grandkids aren't having to fight the same battles that me being 27 years old and my wife being 26 years old having to fight for. I didn't mention my wife just yet.
You better do that.
My wife is the most brilliant individual that I've ever met. She is we talked about reasons.
Yes.
For running for Congress. She helped heal me. That wasn't her role, but she helped heal me through that trauma of losing my friend to gun violence. I actually dropped out of college for a year.
Wow.
After that, and she helped heal me. She's the one who
said,
"What
women do?
You need to go." She was tough. She was like, "You need to go get some help too. I can't get everything. You need to go seek help." So she was the one doing all those things for me. She graduated college the exact same year I graduated college. We both graduated with our degrees in political science, and I dedicated my life towards addressing the root causes of gun violence, and she works in nonprofit mentoring 4th through 8th graders on the west side of Chicago. So it shows you just the value of investing in our young people so we can go back and contribute to society. So I wanted to make sure I mention my wife, but back to the policy end of it, we have to be about solving these problems and being innovative about them and making sure that those who are disproportionately hurt by the system are the ones changing the system, because as a social innovator, we don't do anything without bringing the user inside of the decision-making process. Because what happens when you have people that try to make decisions for you, you make a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of room for error. But when you have folks that understand the community, understand the interconnectivity and the nuances of these issues, you come out with better policies. So that's what our campaign did. So for about 3 months before I even announced that I was running for U.S. Congress, I explored a run for Congress, going around the district, asking people, what are your most pressing concerns? Do you even know who your member of Congress is? What do you want to see? What do you want to see differently in your community?
Now I have one more question, and I'm going to let Paul just take it over.
He's doing great. Go
One
ahead.
more question, and I'm going to let you take it over. Now I'm going to ask another question.
Please.
Was asked to me actually at the beginning of the week. So when it comes to, because when I asked about the chain of command, aldermen, most of our issues within our community, we would go to our aldermen. Now, that being said, this is what was asked to me. So who, other than, okay, we vote for our aldermen, yeah, we know that. But who controls or keeps in line our aldermen, alderwomen, when it goes past the voters, when it comes to Congress, who else holds an alderman accountable? So
good question.
the young lady that I was talking to, and this was a younger young lady, what is she? I think she's about 20, 21 or something like that. And she's like, and I told her, tune in, because I'm going to have this, I don't want to answer it. I want to actually have, someone running for Congress. She said, so okay, you have someone running for Congress coming on the show. Is that, do the people in Congress, do they control the aldermen and alderwomen? I mean, we vote for them, and yeah, you say that we should hold them accountable, but when we can't get to them, who else is over the alderman to say, okay, you've got to do this. Yeah. You've got to do this in this community. You've got to do this within your community. The people want to know who's over the aldermen to make them do what they need to do if they're not, the voters can't talk with them.
So the way the government is actually set up is the people are the bosses of the elected officials, and in reference to
can't say that enough.
Congressmen versus aldermen, and even congressmen versus your members of the Illinois state delegation, but both Senate and your state representatives. The idea of federalism is the distinction between the federal government and state governments. So state governments have sovereignty over the state, and the federal government has sovereignty over the country. It sounds kind of confusing, and there's tons of nuances. But the role of a member of Congress, what we could do is contact your alderman and say, like, hey, Queenie just gave me a call and said that her pothole still exists, and
we have numerous calls.
Now it's getting to my office. Mm-hmm. What can be done? What do you need from me to help over the alderman? But we as the people have to be the bosses of these elected officials.
And now, that's that way. If you want to get to it, states do have sovereignty. They have the right to control what they do. But as an alderman, go to the mayor.
And this is the reason why, when I talk, I talk more of the community, because granted in order to pass 8th grade, you have to know this. Yeah. This is all the legislative, the roles of the legislative, each area. You have to know all of those things and pass the Constitution in 8th grade. Yeah. So granted, you're really supposed to know all of this.
Well, that's federal. They don't really go into the city dynamics.
Unfortunately, they don't.
Not so much. But at the same time, what I'm talking about is the actual timelines. Granted, we are supposed to know this at about 14 and 15. But my entire point of asking that question and saying this is and the reality of why our communities are the way they are, because our people don't know this. These are the typical questions, and this, to me, this goes back to, in order for you guys to change the things that you guys can work on changing, criminal justice reform, violence prevention, jobs and healthcare and mental health and things like this, in order for us to even get to that point to start changing some of these things, the number one thing in our communities, we need more knowledge. We need our residents more knowledgeable about what is actually going on.
Exactly.
And this is one of the reasons why, like I said, I wanted to do the show. And I'm going to stop talking and let Paul finish this out.
Well, if I can go real quick about what you're saying, it's also so critical that our members of Congress, our aldermen, the folks in the Illinois delegation, are actually meeting with the community to hear the concerns and being able to respond. I went to a town hall in Island Terrace on 64th and Stony. It was a residential area, so about 40, 50 folks there, and a lot of the issues that they brought up, they were extremely local. They were about their landlord, they were about their apartment. However, I was able to, one, point them in the right direction, and two, talk about how the federal government can do a lot to alleviate the pain that they're experiencing. So as it pertains to them feeling like they're going to be priced out of that area, I can talk about federal rent control and other policies that would address that issue. So it's important for our members of Congress to be present in our community. And this isn't a Bass Bobby Rush session, but what I oftentimes ask folks is, when the last time you seen Bobby Rush? And it's not about politics. It's about making sure that we have adequate representation so that our lives can thrive in a way that we don't continuously have all these barriers that the system has put in front of us.
Well, in addressing some of the things you put out there, Queenie, one of the issues that I found when I was campaigning, and even when I'm out getting signatures for other people, I'll ask them, well, do you know who your state rep is? Mm-hmm. Do you know who your alderman is? What ward do you live in? Mm-hmm. One of the problems, and it's an issue, we've already agreed that all our problems intersect one another. But I think we should also say that all our solutions will intersect each other as well, because our constituents have to be willing to learn. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, I ask them, well, do you know who your state rep is? No.
A lot of people are signing these petitions. When you guys send people out and now it's time to get the signatures to go on the ballot, people are, we see it all the time. People are, and this is another thing. You have officials out there, the aldermen, you have them that are actually giving these ballots out to people, and they could care less.
True. One of the
because
things
people are signing these, they don't know. They're signing with fake information.
Well, when you have somebody out there, and this is my experience, when you go out to get signatures from people, a lot of times it's based upon the charm of the person asking you to get the signature. Mm-hmm.
And people don't even know who the person is, or who the person is that is the name on this, and they're just, okay, I'll sign it.
Right, and I mean,
my experience has been so different with
really?
petitions. Yeah.
Really?
Let's hear yours.
Yeah. I've had impromptu town halls in front of Walgreens. They want to know who I am, especially when for one, I do my petitions. Of course, I have volunteers, but I like to be present as well. But I've done impromptu town halls at Walgreens and coffee shops because people really want to know what makes me different.
And I'm that person. I've got to look you up before I
maybe because I'm so maybe
well,
they also ask me how old I am. They're like, baby, I mean no disrespect, but how old are you?
Do you even know the issues going on?
Here's the thing too. They will look at you because you're running an area that has had this stalwart person for so many years, and they're going, well, I may not be happy with them, but
I don't know if I can trust a 19-year-old. Yeah. Because you look all of 17 and a half.
So, and I mean, that's just what comes up. But again, we have to have a willingness, and I'm talking as a constituent, not as a politician. We have to have the willingness to learn and to say, like you just asked these questions, well, what's our chain of command? For politics, there is no chain of command.
But people don't ask.
You don't have to go to your alderman. You should, but give your alderman an opportunity to fix the problem. And then if they don't, then you go, well, let me talk to the mayor. Let me go to my state rep, because we are divided up wards, congressional districts by a number. So it's 50,000, 100,000. And those are the people, like you said, the old proverb. You take one stick, you break it pretty easy. You get 5, 10 sticks together.
You can.
Much harder to break those sticks. And
there's strength in numbers.
There's strength in numbers, and that's exactly what we're trying to say. When you come to your alderman's office, or even you go to your 1st Congressional District representative's office, you go, well, hey, I want to know some answers. Well, look, I ain't got time to talk to you right now. Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. We want to know something. come on in. It is about representation. They're supposed to represent us, but we got to represent ourselves.
Definitely.
We got to come, and the thing is, don't come with a whole lot of craziness. You know, what is that your problem? The potholes? Okay.
Quick suggestions. How do we as a community, what do we do to even put that power back, put that power back into our community and make our residents understand we do have power and our tongues have power.
One word.
Come on.
Organize.
And if your elected official isn't responsive to you, grab a clipboard and do what my brother right here did and run against them. Put the pressure. Put the pressure on them. Show them that if what do we say in organizing? If we don't get it, shut it down.
Shut it down.
So the same thing has to be applied to our politics. If we don't get it, and this is what we need as a community to have thriving community, shut it down.
Look at the world. Look at, and I'm not trying to, I'm for or against anybody. Look at Hong Kong. They shutting it down. You go down to Bolivia, they shutting it down. We are the only people who go.
That just allow. We just kind of.
All right then, because even looking at I've been in the military. I went around the world. Even our worst people who we consider like, oh, they're the lowest of low, whatever. They still have it better than a lot of these countries. So. I know we're getting ready to shut down because we're hitting our time frame.
Oh man, I got some more stuff to talk about. I was going to start shouting out some organizations that are shutting it down in the same way we see our sisters and brothers.
Every week you can come back.
I'll be back because I got some stuff to talk about, like Good Kids, Mad City, and Brave Youth Group, and Sunrise Movement, and March for Our Lives. They're not just standing by.
March for Our Lives definitely are not. I know about them.
They're taking. They're taking what they know to be true. Liberty is rarely freely given. It's taken.
Power.
And that's what we're about right now.
Right. And power is rarely given up.
Absolutely.
Actually, we're definitely going to be closing out soon. Perfect. But actually, we're going to have the Thanksgiving break. So want to say, just take the time to be with your families. Take the time to just build the family structures back up and things like that. And we'll be returning the week after Thanksgiving that we'll be returning. That week we will be talking about the importance of voting. So, we were not able to have. She had another engagement, but we were not able to have her in today. To also sit, because I kind of wanted her to sit hand in hand with us as well to kind of chime in on what you were talking about and the importance on what she speaks on with voting. So we're going to take care of that the week after Thanksgiving, and which also chimes into what our legislative, our aldermen, what our elected officials, that chimes in because we have the power.
Absolutely.
We do the voting. We have the power. So we're going to touch on that after the Thanksgiving break. And closing out the show, Robert, I'd just like to give you some time to speak on where we can find you. What do you have coming up? Your website, if anyone wants to donate. Are you taking volunteers in? Give us everything that's going on with your campaign. I do know tomorrow night at 7.
Tomorrow night 7, absolutely.
On the north side, I will definitely be there.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, definitely will be there. But tell us about your campaign and where anyone can find you if they want to support you. How do we support Robert?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Queenie, and thank you so much for having me join your show. Our campaign is about building peace and prosperity in a sustainable way within communities all across the 1st District, and in that case, the country. So we would love and appreciate folks to get involved. The way we've been fundraising, we're not taking a dime from any corporation, and we're not taking any money from the oil and gas industry. Our campaign is solely reliant on the people. And that mindset, that orientation has allowed us to touch 46 different states. We've gotten contributions from over 46 different states and brought in volunteers from all around the country. And it's all because of our mindset towards justice for not just those who can afford it, but justice for all. So please visit our website at robertemmons.org to find out more about our policies. In the first 2 weeks of our campaign, we released a 15-page policy priority document. So we wanted to make sure we were intentional about it. We are also looking for volunteers. So sign up to volunteer at robertemmons.org/volunteer. And you can digital organizing. We would love to see you out in the streets with us as well. So thank you so much. We look forward to working with you, and we look forward to working with as many of your viewers that felt compelled by our vision as possible. So
give us your social media as well.
Thank you so much. My comms guy would be like, come on. Our social media on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is Emmons. That's EMMONS 2020. And so that's Emmons 2020.
Alrighty, and we just want to say good luck.
Thank you.
From the Windy City Review, good luck. Definitely think that you are touching the areas that we would like to see, and I'd like to personally wish you a great career within the Congressional District and legislative, and more power to you. I like to sit down with you 20, 30 years from now and talk about how we got all this started.
Let's make it work.
Yes,
Let's
Paul?
do it. That's a deal, Paul.
No, I'm following what Queenie says. I wish you the best of luck in your campaign. This one as well as future ones, because one thing we don't want to do is get stuck. We want to continue to grow, and that's grow us ourselves and people around us. So I wish you luck on that, and I'll be looking up your stuff pretty soon.
We're gonna hold you accountable, man.
We are gonna hold you accountable.
And if I ain't doing what I'm saying, I'm doing. Get me out of there.
Definitely.
That's right. Okay.
So with Windy City, if you have any questions that you want to throw for me, Paul Collins, you can connect with me at windycityreview.sec@gmail or paulcollins.13a@gmail. This is, for me, my part of this is the Ninth Ward Collective, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be a collective body to make positive change. Queenie?
Alrighty, for anyone that likes to tune in, you can find us every Thursday from 5 to 7, give or take, 5 to 7.
With exception of thanks next week.
You can check us out on Facebook. That is the Windy City Review. You can check all of our media outlet, all of our social medias. You can find us everywhere. Every WVOG entity is under WVOG Media Chicago. You can email us many different ways. You can check out the website, WVOGchicago.com, WVOGradio@gmail.com, WVOGchicago@gmail.com. And worst case scenario, hashtag WVOG or hashtag Queenie Green, and you'll find us. Make sure you come back after Thanksgiving.
And let us give thanks to our host.
Yes, definitely. Want to thank SourPatch Studios for sponsoring the Windy City Review, sponsoring the location. If you would like your event or your podcast or your broadcasting sponsored by SourPatch Media, you can email SourPatch Media at hit us at SourPatchMedia.com. That is HITUS at SourPatchMedia.com. That is the hub for all of your studio recording, podcast recording, and location hosting. Make sure you have a great Thanksgiving. Spend time with the family. Check on your elders. Yes. And Chicago, put the guns down as much as you can. Definitely take care of yourself, but put the frivolous guns down. And that is a wrap. We're out of here. Make sure you come back with us, and we're going to be talking about the importance on voting. And just to recap on that real quick, Paul,
yes,
you are now, say that for us, you are now the man to sign people up to get you voting if you are not registered to vote.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So
I am a deputy registrar now. I can sign you up and get you ready to vote. We're actually going to be holding something at St. Anthony's Church this Saturday.
Okay.
So 116th in Indiana, come out. We'll register you, fundraise. We have just a whole lot going on. Please contact us and we'll get you up to date.
If you or your children need to be registered to vote, contact us and we will get you registered. Right. And then check in with us Thursday after Thanksgiving and find out why you need to register and why it's important for you to be a part of this voting, be a part of what's going on in Chicago, because this is where you reside. On that note, we are out of here. Put the guns down, Chicago. We love you.
Robert Emmons 2020.
Paul Collins.
I like that.
Robert Emmons.
Slide that
Robert in the 2020.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Thank you all.
We like to have fun with it.
I like it. That was fun.
Ooh, I feel like you just stepped out.
Vampire.
I would
was a register? I forgot.